On daybreak, we're following several fires burning in the North State. The Delta fire has merged with the Hers fire and has created a new large spot fire. We'll tell you where containment lines are being made straight ahead on daybreak. On this Monday, I'm Kelly Som. We start with an update on the Delta fire burning in Shasta and Trinity counties. The fire is now 5% contained and has burned 40,900 acres. The U.S. Forest Service says they got the first section of containment after tying in a large section with the Hers fire. Firefighters say fire activity has backed down near Trinity Lake, and they will continue to focus on structure protection. In last night's update, officials said a new spot fire developed on the south edge of the fire that proved challenging for firefighters.
Ultimately, our intent is to bring this fire towards Interstate 5 and be able to secure this entire top end of the fire. On the east side of Interstate 5, same thing. This fire had moderated some. It allowed our bulldozers to continue to push down the ridge here out of the top end of the Hers fire towards the creek here, towards Hazel Creek. Hazel Creek is looking real good as a possible position for us to contain the fire on the northeast portion of the Delta fire, right outside of Interstate 5. So moving down to the southern part of the fire, we did have a little bit of difficulty last night. We had about a 30 to 50 acre spot outside of our proposed containment line. The crews worked very hard to try to contain that, but they were not successful. They were successful, though, in holding this road here, this Fender's Ferry Road. The fire is still north of that, and it's looking real good. Over time, this will fill in. The fire will back down slowly, and this will be our containment line. At this point in time, we don't expect it to get south of Fender's Ferry.
And tonight there will be a public meeting to discuss the Hers and Delta fires. It starts at 6 p.m. at Trinity Center Community Hall. Many of you are asking when Interstate 5 will reopen. Well, Caltrans announced that Interstate 5 between Redding and Mount Shasta will remain closed until further notice. They have hard closures for northbound traffic at Riverview Drive and for southbound traffic at Flume Creek Road. That means no traffic allowed. And a soft closure is in place at Fawndale and Mott Road. Only residents and business owners with proof of ownership will be allowed through those soft closure areas. Caltrans says they will continue to evaluate the road and reopen it as soon as possible. The time is 5:02 and the weather is crucial to the firefight. Chief Meteorologist Mike Kruger here with our Monday forecast. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Kelly. And we're still looking at the poor air quality in many spots, especially around the Redding area and, of course, north of that around the fires themselves. But let's go ahead and take a look at the current conditions out there right now. Another cool start to the day with temperatures in the upper 50s and low 60s for the valley, 40s and even some 50s for the higher elevations and for the coast. We've got temperatures in the low 50s right now. Do you want to mention there's a fire weather watch for the areas in yellow, as you can see here, for eastern Modoc County, Lassen, and even eastern Plumas County as well. The main concern will be that higher fire danger in those areas because of the low humidity, and we're expecting some gusty winds to develop there over the next 24 to 48 hours. So out the door this morning, smoky and hazy, especially in the valley, although better air quality along the coast. Be looking at that fog lingering through at least the noon hour for the coast, eventually looking at partly cloudy skies, partly sunny skies, temperatures around 60. Another warm day for the valley, low to mid 90s, but we do expect a cooling trend this week. Details coming up a little bit later. Kelly.
Thank you, Mike. 5:04 is the time, and the Hers fire near Shasta Lake remains at 95% containment this morning. The Hers fire has burned more than 46,000 acres. According to the U.S. Forest Service, the fire continues to hold within its perimeter with no new growth. Shasta Trinity National Forest lands, roads, and trails around the fire perimeter have been closed. These include the Pacific Crest Trail between Ash Camp and Gumboot. The closure on the McLeod Arm has been lifted. There are currently no closures on Shasta Lake. The Curlin fire in Trinity County has burned 1,600 acres and is 20% contained. As of yesterday afternoon, all the mandatory evacuations have been downgraded to advisories. Firefighters worked overnight to hold the established containment lines around Mill and Middle Creeks. The fire was most active yesterday on the northeastern corner behind the sawmill. In other news, one person was killed in a rolled-over crash near Bella Vista. This happened around 6:30 last night near Dusty Oaks Trail on Highway 299 East. The CHP said one vehicle rolled over and the driver did not survive. It's not clear if the traffic diversion rerouted from the I-5 closure played a role. The crash is under investigation. If you're driving along Highway 299 East, the owner of this dog named Callie needs your help finding her. Callie went missing Saturday after the moving van she was in was involved in a crash on Highway 299 east of Stillwater. Witnesses saw her run along the north side of 299 before disappearing. Friends searched the area but say there's a lot of private property they couldn't search. Callie likes dark and cozy places. She was wearing a pink collar with a silver tag. Her owner has been released from the hospital after the crash and had to continue with his move. There's major flooding on the East Coast ahead of Hurricane Florence. High waters throughout the streets are leaving residents stranded. Victoria Sanchez reports on some of the worst flooding this area near Washington, D.C. has seen in decades.
As Alexandria police shut down the streets, firefighters brought out the boats. Rescue crews headed not to the Potomac River, but down the flooded road to shops and restaurants.
This is pretty bad. And I'm wondering about next weekend when they have this hurricane coming through, what this will be like.
As high tide moved in, people raced to cars trying to get them out in time. Most stores shut down for the night.
Anybody in there?
No.
No? Okay.
Just me.
But one wanted to wait it out.
I had to close down early because of the water.
Old Town Alexandria is known to flood, but this was something new. Have you ever seen it like this before?
No, 24 years here. I've never seen it like this in my life, ever.
Baristas at the corner coffee shop tried to reassure customers.
We kept telling them, oh, it's going to go back. And then it just didn't. It just continued getting higher.
The staff needed rescuing themselves.
We have to evacuate through the boat. This is the first time. It's really fun and scary.
Oliver Gemina slipped on the wet floor and injured his foot, but will be okay. For water-soaked shops and flooded vehicles, they'll need a little more help.
Oh yeah, it always kind of gets kind of high, but not like this.
That was Victoria Sanchez reporting. A coastal flood advisory is in effect for Washington, D.C. through today. 5:07 is the time this Monday. With the Delta fire burning nearby, some North State residents have had to decide whether to stay or to go. We'll check in with people in Dunsmuir who are watching the fire very closely. And it's liftoff. A new satellite was launched into space this morning. Coming up, how the weather almost kept it on the ground.
Well, it looks like we are going to see this week. Now, here's Wednesday right now. Smoky skies out. Welcome back, everyone. The time now is 5:10. It is Monday morning. Take a look at our threat tracker for the next 3 days. Now, I kept it at low for the next 3 days simply because we don't expect any severe weather in the forecast. However, we're still going to see the hazy and smoky skies out there, especially for the northern end of the valley and around the vicinity of the fires themselves. But air quality will continue to kind of wax and wane over the next several days, especially with those fires. All right, take a look at the storm tracker right now, and you can see not a lot of activity out there right now. I am tracking this right here. You see this little swirl of low pressure? That is going to be swinging southward over the next few days. Now, what that will do is help to really drop our temperatures down. In fact, we're going to see a big drop in our temperatures by the middle of this week. Now, here's Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Nice trough low pressure right here. That's that cooler air really beginning to cool down. Temperatures dropping down. Yeah, you're not going to kind of listen right now. We're talking about temperatures in the 70s and low 80s in the valley. Even so, yeah, significantly cooler weather in the forecast. There's that heat way down to our south and east. Now, that cooler air will eventually retreat as we get to the end of this week and even into the weekend, but it will stay up to our north and east. But we'll still keep our temperatures at bay, if you will, with temperatures probably back in the 80s and even some 90s in the valley. And for the coast, really not much variation, generally in the low to mid 60s. So here's your forecast for today, for your Monday. Look for a high of 69 in Neelan, 79 for Willow Creek, and 83 83 degrees for a high today in Garberville. A high of about 65 in Crescent City, 62 in Eureka, and Orleans a bit warmer with a high today of about 84 degrees. And for the mountains, how about the 70s and 80s for your highs today? Northwest winds at about 5 to 15 miles per hour. High of 84 degrees for Bernie, 81 degrees in Shingletown. Alturas will see a high today of about 80 degrees. And for the Valley today, still another warm start to your work week. About 95 degrees for Redding, 94 in Red Bluff, just slightly above normal for this time of the year. Chico, you'll see a high today of about 91, 93 in Corning, 93 for Orland, and Gridley will see a high today of about 90 degrees. So it's going to be a hot start to your work week, but we are going to see temperatures dropping. As I mentioned earlier, we're talking upper 70s and low 80s for those daytime highs by the middle to even latter part of this week. So get ready for some cooler air. Now, as far as rain is concerned, not seeing a lot of moisture associated with the storm system coming through, dropping our temperatures, but certainly something we'll be watching closely, as it's still not out of the question maybe see some rain too.
We'll all enjoy the cooler temperatures regardless, even if rain or no rain.
Yeah, I mean, even without the rain, that'll be just some good relief for the firefighters.
Yeah, okay. Welcome back, Mike. Thanks. Good to have you back. It is 5:12. The Delta fire has some residents keeping a close eye on the horizon as it continues to burn. We'll introduce you to the family running a market that's seeing continued business thanks to emergency workers. As the Delta fire about
and I'm Art Express.
Homelessness will be the topic tonight at a special meeting of the Red Bluff City Council. That meeting will be at 6 p.m. at the Board of Supervisors chambers in Red Bluff. The 10-year plan to end homelessness will be presented, along with information about emergency shelters and funding programs. If you go, you'll be able to address the board with your concerns. This meeting comes after the board directed Tehama County community stakeholders to develop a plan to address homelessness. As the Delta fire rages on, some North State residents are staying right where they are. There are no mandatory evacuations for Dunsmuir, just an evacuation warning that's been in effect for several days. In essence, those residents should be ready to go if needed. KRCR News Channel 7's Trevor Fay spoke with a Dunsmuir man who's a fourth-generation resident, and with the fire 12 miles south of town, he's staying put.
Manfredi's family has lived in Dunsmuir for nearly 100 years. He was busy watering ash from the Delta fire off his property when I pulled up. While he's decided not to evacuate, he does have an evacuation plan in place.
If the evacuation orders did come through, do you think that you guys would just stay put, or would you actually pack up and leave?
I think I'd get my parents out of here. I think I'd stick around and maybe water down the houses like you do, you know, yeah.
Manfredi's family owns a food and gas depot in town that employs some of the locals. The store is seeing continued business despite the fire, partially thanks to emergency workers.
We've had people from the, firefighters and railroad people and stuff like that coming up here and ordering a bunch of our deli sandwiches and getting sodas and a lot of stuff.
And it's not just emergency workers stopping to fill their tanks and stomachs. Several townspeople who've decided not to evacuate are still visiting the store. One woman, Yvonne Rose, is letting faith guide her actions during this emergency.
My family and who I am around up here are Christians, and we just believe that we stand in faith, and we believe that there's just going to be some great, awesome things that God's going to be doing up here.
Rose, another longtime resident, told me she's upset by the actions of some people traveling through town during the fire. She's seen lit cigarettes thrown out of car windows as people pass through to avoid the closed I-5.
That was Trevor Fay reporting. Again, Interstate 5 remains closed, and we want to emphasize there are no mandatory evacuations for Dunsmuir. 5:17 the time. Gone is the swimsuit competition. In come the interviews. Coming up, how Miss America 2.0 changed the game last night.
Areas by the afternoon with hot spots.
Decorative and high temperature applications. Consider Victory Powder Coating for your next project. Victory Powder Coating.
Welcome back, everyone. The time now is 5:20. A cool start to the day. Temperatures generally in the 50s, a bit warmer in Chico at about 66 degrees right now. 45 degrees in Bernie and 43 right now in El Tourist. And for the coast, we got upper 40s and even some low 50s right now. Still some patchy fog out there this morning. 48 degrees in Willow Creek and Weaverville right now. Temperature of about 46 degrees. So let's take a look at some of those hot spots as indicated by the satellite. And there you can see the Delta fire still very active. And as you know, of course, it's kind of made its way into the HERS fire as well, but certainly making some good ground on the HERS fire. Unfortunately, now we've got the Delta fire to contend with here, and just a lot of activity pretty much around the entire perimeter of the fire, only at about 5% containment right now. By the way, kind of interesting here too, you can see around the car fire, a little orange dot there indicating a little bit of activity there in the last 24 hours. I'm sure nothing to be concerned about though. All right, take a look at the Natchez fire, about 77% contained right now, and there you can see just a little bit of activity on the western and southwestern side, but nothing too terribly concerning. And you can certainly see those burn scars. Here's the Delta fire right here, the darkest areas indicating where we are seeing the hottest part of the fire, and of course the HERS fire, you can still see some of that burning there as well. Take a look at that temperature trend over the next several days. Hot start to the day, but look at that big drop in our temperatures, dropping well below normal by the middle to even latter part of this week. And as far as today is concerned, I'm expecting Chico to be in the low 90s, whereas Redding will be closer to the mid 90s for that daytime high today. And for the coast, we'll be looking at that fog, especially in the morning. Should most likely burn off in many areas by the afternoon with highs in the low to mid 60s. Kelly.
Thanks, Mike. The North State's Aaron Rodgers made a comeback last night when he returned to the field after injuring his knee in the Bears-Packers game. He threw 3 touchdown passes in the second half of the game against the Bears. Rodgers was carted off the field in the first half after connecting with receiver Randall Cobb. But here's a look at that injury. But he overcame, and the Packers, a 20-point deficit in the end, beating my Bears 24-23. Heartbreaking. Nina Franklin of New York is the new Miss America. Organizers eliminated the swimsuit competition and dubbed this new competition Miss America 2.0. Candace Gibson shows us the changes.
The 98th Miss America.
Nina Franklin, New York, you are Miss America 2019.
For a
New spot were made public in the New Yorker. We'll tell you what 6 different women allege Les Moonves did to them and their careers. Straight ahead on Daybreak. Welcome into Daybreak on this Monday. Glad you're with us. I'm Kelly Som. The Delta fire continues to burn in Shasta and Trinity counties. It is 5% contained and has burned more than 40,000 acres. The U.S. Forest Service says it was able to get the first containment over the weekend after tying in a large section with the HERS fire. Firefighters say fire activity has backed down near Trinity Lake, and they will continue to focus on structure protection. In last night's video update, officials said a new spot fire developed on the southern edge of the fire that gave firefighters a hard time. And we have live team coverage on the Delta fire. We check in with Courtney Kreider for how it's affecting traffic. Courtney?
Good morning, Kelly. So I'm off of Gibson Road, and this is just a look at what the interstate looks like and why it's still closed. So this is 25 miles, let's see, south of Dunsmuir and about 35 north of Redding for people that are wondering where Gibson Road is at. And here is where this fire is still very active. So firefighters that I've been speaking with going out on the line, they tell me they haven't witnessed this extreme fire behavior, but they have experienced extreme spotting, which has taken this fire as far as it is today. We saw it just explode in size in these first couple of days, just going to different ridge lines. And this is looking east from Gibson Road. So here's where we have an active portion of the fire. And then if I'm going to look a little to my north, and then we have an active ridge line over here as well. Now, I was speaking to firefighters who were performing structure protection last week, and they were saying that they feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to save the homes along Gibson. So they want people to know that they are not giving up as far as this fire moving further down the ridgeline. They say they're still trying to keep it towards the top and towards the sides and not going down where those homes are in Lakehead and Gibson. But this is where you can see firefighters are struggling to get containment with these steep ridge lines. They are going up, making dozer lines on the top, but it's definitely been an active fight on this fire. Now, when I was traveling up Interstate 5, it actually somewhat looks like it's snowing with all the ash, and it's been going in and out from very smoky to then clear air. So I don't know what that's going to mean for air response today, but when that smoke sets in, it does get very thick. Visibility is extremely hard, but right now we just wanted to bring you a look at this is why the interstate is still closed. It's still a very active fire, but of course we'll bring you the latest updates as we learn them. Kelly?
Thanks, Courtney. We'll check back. So how will the weather affect the fire today? Chief Meteorologist Mike Kruger is in the Weather Center with today's forecast. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Kelly. Of course, Courtney was saying as she was going up I-5, the air quality was just kind of getting worse in some areas, not as bad in others. So it just depends on what the fire itself is doing and what those winds are doing as well. Now, as of right now, looking at the air quality index from airnow.gov, this yellow dot indicates the Anderson area, by the way, because things are certainly much worse in the Reading area, but anywhere from good to moderate on average. So we take a look at purpleair.com. This is where a lot of people have been going for their information here. In the Reading area, it is anywhere from unhealthy to sensitive groups to very unhealthy, so I've kind of averaged it at the unhealthy. As you start heading to the south, though, the air quality does get better. Red Bluff is looking moderate, and there you can see in Orland it's actually unhealthy for sensitive groups. And for the coast, haven't seen a big problem here with the air quality, although Fortuna in the last hour has gone from good to moderate. So it looks green, seeing a little bit of smoke for some areas near the coast. Here's your back to school forecast, and this is what the coast is looking like. Temperatures in the low 60s this afternoon, and your bus stop forecast for the valley. Yeah, we'll be looking at those smoky skies this morning, otherwise sunny skies for the rest of us. Temperatures in the upper 50s this morning, but as you're heading back home from school, still smoky and a little hazy out there as well, with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s by the time they're heading back home from school. Kelly.
Thank you, Mike. 5:35 is the time, and the Delta fire has forced classes to be canceled today at Castle Rock Elementary School in Castella. The school superintendent said the school is closed in part due to the closure of Interstate 5. Castella is about 11 miles outside the fire line. An update on the forest closures in the Shasta Trinity National Forest due to the fires. The Carr fire closure order was lifted last Wednesday. The Hearst fire closure order remains in place and now includes the portion of Pacific Crest Trail between Ash Camp and Gumboot. The closure on the McLeod Arm has been lifted. The Delta fire closure order includes National Forest lands west of the Hearst fire towards Highway 3 in Trinity County. New this morning, the CBS network is reshaping its board after their president and CEO has become the latest entertainment executive to be accused of sexual misconduct. CBS announced that Les Moonves was departing late last night.
Mayor is on at us had opened.
And arrive at LAX at 8:35 a.m. United will operate a 50-seat Canadian regional jet on the new route. The service will start next March. We will learn more at a news conference at the Reading Airport today at 10 a.m. An evacuation shelter for the Delta fire is open at the National Guard Armory in Mount Shasta. Reporter Sade Brown spoke with one mother who took her family to the shelter and talked about why she's concerned.
The American Red Cross had opened their doors Friday for those who've been evacuated due to the Delta fire. According to the Red Cross, over 20 people registered in the system that evacuated. They say most are staying with family and friends, and only a few decided to stay at the shelter, like Jennifer Ford from Dunsmuir.
This is just, it's a roller coaster. There's no other way of describing it. It's literally a minute to minute. I'm just trying to make the best decision for me and my family.
Ford says she came to the shelter because she's worried for her kids.
My children has asthma. I have breathing issues. Like I have bronchitis. And so I thought, well, we already went this far, even though we found out that it was an advisory evacuation, not mandatory.
The town of Dunsmuir is on an evacuation warning, so residents aren't required to leave. But with the uncertainty of the fire, Ford says she doesn't feel safe taking her kids back and forth.
With my disabled child, it would be really hard to get out in a last-minute mandatory evacuation. So I think I'm making the best decision by just hunkering down, staying here to wait out what's going to happen with the fire.
But not only does Ford worry for her kids, but also for her community and town of Dunsmuir.
My biggest concern is for Dunsmuir. It's for my friends that I feel like I've left behind.
Ford says she's thankful for the help of the Red Cross and firefighters.
I'm grateful to the firefighters, though I know that they'll do their best.
And hope those fighting the fire won't forget about her own town.
I feel like Dunsmuir's kind of a little forgotten about town. and that's my biggest thing is don't forget about Dunsmuir. Because they matter.
Sade Brown, KRCR News, Channel 7.
I want to be clear, Dunsmuir is not under a mandatory evacuation, just an evacuation advisory. People there should be ready to go. The fire about 12 miles to the south of Dunsmuir. A new memorial has been dedicated to the victims of 9/11. We'll tell you the symbolism behind this new tower, honoring the passengers on Flight 93.
In today's Tech Bites,